on this Monday evening. We got a lot to talk about. A crazy week 5 in the NFL. We are a full month into the season. Going to talk about, obviously, lead off the show, the Dallas Cowboys now 4-1. Big win in Los Angeles over the Rams. I'm not going to call it a road win because that was a home game. That might as well have been Jerry World West, as I heard one call it, in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium over the Rams. I'll lead the show with that. Also talk about, man, do I feel vindicated about the Green Bay Packers. I am feeling really good, even more confident today than I was, heck, even last week, that the Packers will miss the playoffs. I will get into the very specific reason, one individual especially, that I want to talk about with the Packers, losing yesterday to the New York Giants, 27-22. I'll talk about that. Matt Rhule got fired by the Carolina Panthers. I'll discuss that. No surprise there. I think if we had to guess who would be the first coach to go this season of the guys that are on the hot seat, he was on it. Also, Lamar leads the Ravens to a comeback win over the Cincinnati Bengals. They finally did not blow a double-digit home lead. They got to win over their division rival Bengals over Joe Burrow, who had a solid night. I'll also talk about that. MLB postseason, wild card round done. I went 2-2 in my picks. I got my both American League picks right. National League 0-2. Hopefully I can go 4-0 on the Division Series, which I had a pretty rough outing last year. I went 1-3, so hoping to, I guess you can't go anywhere but up in that regard. And at the end of the show, I will predict Raiders Chiefs Monday Night Football to close out Week 5 in the NFL. But first, listen, there's a lot of people who have a question, especially for me, after what I said about this team all offseason, and I think that question is pretty obvious. The question is,
how about them Cowboys? Yeah!
I got to eat crow today. I got to. The Dallas Cowboys are 4-1 now, folks. Second best record in the National Football League. They happen to be second in their division to the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles, but a statement win over the Los Angeles Rams yesterday. They won the game 22-10. And here's what I want to say. I want to start with the defense. If it weren't for the San Francisco 49ers putting up numbers similar to that of the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, the Dallas Cowboys would have the best defense in the NFL. I would take them today over Tampa. I would take them today over Buffalo. You stack Niners aside, you put any defense in the National Football League up against the Dallas Cowboys, I will take Dallas over anybody. It's like Niners out, I'd take Dallas over the field in terms of defense. Micah Parsons was dealing with the groin injury. We saw him coming out of the locker room at halftime. He was limping a little bit. Looks like he was in some pain. Couldn't tell in the second half. 2 sacks, which I predicted on the Cowboys Can Fan pregame show. Shout out to those guys. Crack him if you got him. But I predicted that Micah Parsons would have 2 sacks, and he had that game-ending strip sack to really, put the bow on a big win for Dallas. DeMarcus Lawrence played well. He had the strip sack from Dorrance Armstrong. He recovered it for the touchdown. Dorrance Armstrong also blocked a punt. And so when you're talking about Dallas, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, they have a way to win. And it's been very effective, right? Score early, put the pressure on the opposition's offense, get stops defensively, let Trayvon Diggs do his thing, let guys like Micah and DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, Odigizua had a sack yesterday. Let those guys go after the quarterback and make things tough on him. Because to me, that is the mark of a great defense. Dallas likes to play man. We know Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, what a job that he has done in 2 years in Dallas. Dallas is a heavy man team. But the mark of a great defense, a truly great defense, when they can get pressure without blitzing. If they can just send 4 and get pressure on the quarterback. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that the Rams are dealing with all kinds of injuries and all kinds of, a lack of continuity on their offensive line. Some of it has to do with that. But they forced Matt Stafford to make some poor decisions, especially late in the fourth quarter. The interception to Malik Hooker. Okay, and again, I mentioned the strip sack late. Micah Parsons making that play. And so, again, Matt Stafford is a guy, we know, you can force him to make mistakes. Okay, as I say, sometimes in jest, but sometimes in being serious. Today, I'm kind of being serious when I say that. You can take the quarterback out of Detroit, but you can't take the Detroit out of the quarterback. Some of that applied yesterday. And so that Dallas Cowboys defense, folks, is special. It's special. There's no other way around it. They look unbelievable. But here's kind of what I want to get at offensively, because people talk about, okay, the Cowboys are sitting there at 4-1. Okay, they've done something in the first 5 weeks of the season that has not been done since 2016. You want to know what that is? Beat the two teams that participated in the previous season's Super Bowl. The Cowboys beat the Bengals in week 2 to start this winning streak, and their most recent win, as a matter of fact, in the stadium where the Super Bowl was played, against the team that won the Super Bowl, the Los Angeles Rams. It hasn't been done since the Atlanta Falcons did it in 2016. And what do we know about those Falcons? They got to the Super Bowl. We know what happened in that Super Bowl, but they still got there. Ironically, with Dan Quinn as their head coach. But here's what I kind of want to circle around on. Are the Cowboys contenders? Well, they're bordering on it. In an NFC that I said coming into the season I didn't trust. I thought the Rams would be great. They're not. I said Tampa Bay would get to the NFC Championship game, and while I'm not putting that out of the picture because we're talking about Tom Brady, have they had a very impressive performance yet? Again, I have yet to see Tampa Bay put together a complete game. I'll talk a little bit about the Bucs later in the show. The Packers don't look great. The Vikings are in close games with the Chicago Bears. Like, Philadelphia is really the only team that hasn't had a bad game, and they're 5-0. But here's what I think is holding back the Dallas Cowboys from being contenders. I still don't trust the receiving unit. I don't. I trust Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, the job that they have done running the football. Again, we saw Tony Pollard had that long touchdown to put Dallas back on top after the Cooper Kupp touchdown. Again, Trayvon Diggs, my man. I'm starting to buy back into Trayvon Diggs, but he turned back into Kenny Rogers. He turned back into the gambler. Okay, he tried to play it inside. Cooper Kupp beat him, went the distance. Outside of that, Trayvon Diggs played a good game. But Dallas yesterday rushed for 163 yards. Pollard averaged 11 yards a carry. Zeke averaged only 3.5, but he was kind of that bell cow back. Typical Zeke stat line, 22 carries for 78 yards. We know he doesn't have the burst Tony Pollard does. We know Dallas can run the football, and I got to be honest with you. To me, the biggest shock of the Dallas Cowboys 4-game winning streak, to me, their offensive line. Tyron Smith, gone. Lyle Collins, lost him in free agency. Okay, you've got a rookie, Tyler Smith, starting at left tackle. Jason Peters didn't play. Now, he's been playing limited snaps, but he was out for the whole game due to injury. Tyler Biotish, I think, is a limited center. Zach Martin is still great, but we know he's been dealing with some injuries. His skills are receding a little bit as he gets up there in age. That Dallas offensive line has been excellent. Against, by the way, some pretty good pass rushes. Cincinnati, Giants, Washington still has an okay pass rush. And we know the Rams definitely got a good pass rush because Aaron Donald, who had a good game yesterday. I still don't trust the receiving unit. CeeDee Lamb dropped another wide open pass yesterday, folks. I didn't know that he was Kyrie Irving. I didn't know he was an anti-vaxxer. He didn't get vaccinated against the drops. He still won't get vaccinated against the drops. Now, Gallup also had a drop yesterday, but we don't expect that from him as much as we do CeeDee Lamb. But again, we talk about the sort of the quote, I'm going to say this in quotes, quarterback controversy. Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott. First of all, Cooper Rush yesterday, 10 for 16, $102, no touchdowns, no picks. He had a QBR 0-100, a QBR of 16. So this was a class participation grade for Cooper Rush. I thought this would be the game where he got exposed a little bit. But I picked the Rams to win a low-scoring game, 19-16. He wasn't even in position to do that, right? The Cowboys didn't put him in position to be quote-unquote exposed by the Rams defense. But I still maintain, if the Dallas Cowboys want to be a Super Bowl contender, if they want a legitimate chance of getting to Arizona, which is where the Super Bowl is going to be this year, they've got to upgrade the receiving unit. And I have a solution. We talk about there's a lot of problems in this world, but what's the solution? Do we have a solution to those problems? Well, I got a solution to the Cowboys wide receiver problem. Go pursue aggressively. Do something that the Cowboys have not done in quite some time. Pursue a big-time free agent. Odell Beckham Jr. is not in the team yet, folks. And we know he's listed teams like he wants to play for the Bills. He possibly coming back to the Rams. Rams could sure use him right now because Matt Stafford, once again, turned into that one-read quarterback, just going to Cooper Kupp the whole time. Or Skoranek or Allen Robinson, who once again did nothing yesterday. It's talked about possibly, there's been rumblings about him going back to the Giants. I doubt that happens, but yeah, you never know. If I'm Dallas, I'm saying I'm going hard after him because you tell me in a big game, because Dallas looks like, as long as they don't screw anything up, looks like they're going to be a playoff team. NFC East winner, don't know because they're in the same division as right now the best team in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. They got a big game against Philadelphia next week. That'll be very fun to watch. But Dallas looks like they're going to get into the playoffs, given the start they've gotten off to. But in a big game, in a 3rd and 7, okay, you're down 4 points to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, trying to drive your midfield. You got a 3rd down and 7. You want CeeDee Lamb or you want Odell? Because I've seen Odell make those big catches in big playoff games. Saw him do it last year numerous times for the LA Rams. I haven't seen CeeDee Lamb do that. He had, one catch in the playoff game last year against the Niners? CeeDee Lamb, I've been beating this table all offseason. He is a 2. He is a number 2 wide receiver. If that's your best guy, you don't have a very good receiving unit. I'm just being totally honest with you right now. Michael Gallup coming back helps. He's that deep threat, that big, red zone target. Okay, Noah Brown has played well, but it's not enough. Okay, because we know Mike Tyson. What's the old Mike Tyson quote? Everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. There's going to be a team in the future, whether it comes in the regular season, whether it comes in the postseason, that's going to take Dallas out of what they're comfortable doing, whether that be running the football and whether that be, you get a high-flying offense that, maybe shreds the Cowboys defense. We haven't seen it thus far, not even close. But even the great defenses have bad performances. It happens. Everybody does. It's bound to happen. So what are you going to counter with that offensively? We know Dak is better than Cooper Rush. It's not even close. I mean, Cooper Rush, for those of you that want Cooper Rush start over Dak, so you want a guy who is 23rd in completion percentage, 26th in yards per game, and ranks 21st in the NFL in 20-plus yard completions. That's the guy you want starting over Dak. But I'll leave that be. Go get Odell, and also, because I'm going to talk about this team a little later in the show, go trade for DJ Moore. I liked DJ Moore coming out of college, but going to Carolina, who's he at quarterback? An old, washed Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, Kyle Allen, Baker Mayfield. Come on now. Dak's head and shoulders above these guys. So you add DJ Moore, so you can use him as somewhat of a gadget guy, right? Trade a 2nd-round pick for DJ Moore. Okay, so you got Odell as your 1, Lamb as your 2, DJ Moore as your 3. It's pretty good. Michael Gallup as well, and here's something else too with Gallup. He's had some injuries. So if Michael Gallup goes down, no harm, no foul. Remember the Cowboys last year. Who'd they have when Michael Gallup went down? They had Cedric Wilson. They had a backup plan. Now the backup plan is Simi Fehoko, James Washington, if and when he comes back. I'm going to trust DJ Moore. I'm sorry, DJ Moore a lot more than those guys. That's my solution to the problem for the Cowboys. The only thing that I think is holding them back from contention. Do I trust Mike McCarthy? Not really. Not really. I trust Dan Quinn, the job he's doing with the defense. But is this one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the NFC? Absolutely. I think it's safe to say that today. To me, it goes Eagles, Niners, and then you're kind of in a tug of war between Dallas and Minnesota. That's what it feels like. I think Dallas is better than Tampa today. They're definitely better than Green Bay today. Saints, I know they got a win yesterday against Seattle, but they're kind of one-dimensional. Their defense hasn't been as good as we thought. So this is a top 4 team in the NFC right now. And so because of that, they feel like a Super Bowl contender if they upgrade the receiving unit. And of course, if Dak Prescott comes back, because if he doesn't, no, this is not a Super Bowl contender. Let us look at the comments here. John just says, my boy on cloud 9, LOL, Cowboys and Tennessee win. Listen, I've made it abundantly clear. Clear, as Stephen A. Smith would say. That I am an off and on Cowboys fan. I'm more of a Dak fan than Cowboys fan. I support the Cowboys because Dak plays for them. Because I was a Dak fan before he was on the Cowboys, just for the record. But yes, my Vols did win on Saturday against LSU convincingly, and we are now the 6th-ranked team in the country, and we are going to be Alabama on Saturday. You can put that in the books. And there you go, Barry. There you go. He said OBJ. That's what I'm saying. Will OBJ want to come to Dallas? I know Victor Cruz, his former teammate, suggested the other day, like, hey, listen, it's America's team. It's a big stage. Hey, maybe. Why not? OBJ, here's my only concern for OBJ, health. Has that because Jay Glazer was talking yesterday on the Fox NFL pregame show. He was talking about Odell should be good to go around November. So if early to mid-November hits, if that ACL is fully recovered, go for it. If Jerry Jones, because Jerry's on cloud nine, he's doing all these press conferences, talk about jewelries. He said jewelries comes with wins like this. Okay. If you think this team can compete, if you really think this team can compete, go get OBJ, or at least pursue him. At least make an active effort to go get him. Unlike how you tried to lowball Von Miller, trying to get him on some cheap deal, and Buffalo said, "Hey, we're going to give him the money that he's worth." He's like, "Okay, I'm going to Buffalo," and you see what Von Miller's done there. Let's. Somehow, Grady, I knew you were going to put this in the comments. He said Antonio Brown is around Bud. He's a Dallas Cowboy. Golly, man, that dude's got bigger things to worry about than football. Let's put it that way. He's a bum. He's a bum. On a serious note, go try and trade for DJ Moore. There you go. That's what I was talking about. And I think with DJ Moore, he's been used as a little bit of a gadget guy with the Panthers, but we know he's a solid route runner. Dude is fast. And that's a little bit, the Cowboys lack that a little bit offensively outside of Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's got wheels. CeeDee Lamb can move. He's not a burner. Michael Gallup is more of we saw he made that great catch on the sideline, as Nate Burleson would say, the toe drag swag play. He's a good deep ball receiver, but he's not what you would call necessarily a burner. DJ Moore is. Like, he would bring that to the offense. He would bring that even more so than Odell would. So, yeah, I think that would be I think that'd be huge. And he said we might be about to have a fire sale pretty darn soon. I think so. And I'm going to talk about Matt Rhule later in the show. And Grady says wait, let me put this up. There we go. Just to be clear, I'm a Pats fan 1A, then Panthers fan 1B because I'm from Charlotte. Hey, I respect that. I know plenty of people who have their favorite NFL team and then their team from their local area. I respect that. I don't get the people, though, who have like a West Coast team and an East Coast team. Like if that was the case, I'd be a Red Sox and a Dodgers fan because I've always respected the Dodgers. NBA, so West Coast team is the Warriors. Who'd my East Coast team be? Okay. I've always liked the Miami Heat. I've always respected Miami, so maybe I could do Miami. NFL, so let's see. If I were a Cowboys fan, they're in the middle of the country. So do we consider that West or East Coast? Like what would I do there? I don't know. And then if it was college football, looks like the West Coast is back in college football. I don't know. USC, maybe UCLA. I'm not sure. Maybe we ought to do a segment on that in the show sometime soon. But hey, listen, we know the Cowboys fans are happy. They should be. This is a team that I feel like is a couple of receivers away from being a Super Bowl contender, because if teams take you out of running the football in the games that you will have to win in a shootout, what do you have? Because I've been very vocal on this show. I do not trust CeeDee Lamb. I don't. Gallup, sure, but he feels more like a 3 than a 2. Noah Brown is good. He's got a really good rapport with Cooper Rush. Dalton Schultz, I don't fear Dalton Schultz as a tight end, although he did get hurt yesterday. The Cowboys tight end, of course, pretty bare, but they've done a good job blocking. So if they can make up for what they lack in pass catching and route running ability in their blocking, I'm cool with that, because the Cowboys are a run first team. I just think they need to add a little bit more depth at the wide receiver position. All right, moving on to a team. So I admitted I was wrong on a team, the Dallas Cowboys, because I said when my man Dak went down, I said this team is dead. This team's not going anywhere. The season's over. Feels like a little bit of overreaction after week 1, to say the very least. So this is why I love doing Carving It Up, because from one segment I can admit I was dead freaking wrong, and then the next segment I can gloat a little bit because I told y'all so about something else. So the Green Bay Packers lost to the New York Giants yesterday, 27-22 in London. They led by a couple of touchdowns, ended up losing the game. What I thought was really interesting about this game, and I said coming into this one, this is the battle of the 3-1 frauds. Okay, Giants fans, you have every reason to be excited today. You've got your coach. I love the Brian Daboll hiring from the beginning. I didn't like how they lowballed Brian Flores. I hated that. But with that said, I thought Brian Dable was excellent in Buffalo as the offensive coordinator there, really helped Josh Allen's development to a certain degree. And I thought he would do a good job in New York with the Giants. Didn't think he'd be this good this quick, especially with Daniel Jones at quarterback with that offensive line, but he has. And the Giants are sitting at 4-1. That said, New York, with all due respect, you are not a Super Bowl contender. You're not. You cannot win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Unless your defense was as good as the Cowboys defense or the Niners or the Eagles, no, you're not on that level yet. But this feels like it could be a playoff team, so we'll see where their season progresses from here. But for Green Bay, okay, you've got the edge. Obviously, you have the edge at quarterback. That goes without saying. You obviously have the edge at offensive line. You, as great as Saquon Barkley is, he's obviously the better of the three running backs if you compare him to the likes of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. But if you're talking about an all-around running game, I think we take the Packers in part because of that running back tandem and their offensive line. And defensively, it feels like it's kind of on equal footing. And so games like that often get decided by coaching. And I've been saying this about the Packers all season long. We know that they're limited at wide receiver. I mean, that they lost Devontae Adams. And by the way, they also lost Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's doing good things in Kansas City now. He'll be playing tonight. And so if you're the Packers, as a well-coached team would do, and this is why I'm giving Mike McCarthy some credit for what's going on in Dallas. To Mike McCarthy's credit, he is leaning into what the Cowboys do well. Defense, running the ball. That's what they're doing. Matt LaFleur is not. I get you got Aaron Rodgers. You got a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, 4-time MVP, Super Bowl champion. It's defense and it's run the football. And here's what I think is interesting. To me, this is always the mark of a great coach. What are you to start the game? What's your opening game plan? And coming out the half, how do you adjust? That is what has made the careers of Belichick, of Andy Reid, of Mike Tomlin, of Sean McVay, Sean Payton. This is what has made the careers of those coaches. And this is why I say it makes me sick. Any Packer game I watch and they put up Matt LaFleur's winning percentage to guys like Lombardi and John Madden, I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. If you're putting that up, you're not watching the games. Because when it comes to in-game decisions, when it comes to adjustments, I've been saying this since he was hired in 2019. Matt LaFleur is a below-average coach. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's Nathaniel Hackett bad. But he's a below-average head coach. I know that. The Green Bay Packers, okay, they play 5 games this season. They have scored a grand total of 20 second-half points. That is the 4th worst in the NFL. With Aaron Rodgers, with that running game. By the way, how about this? Aaron Jones leads the NFL in yards per carry. A.J. Dillon averaged 5 yards a carry yesterday, and that's around what Aaron Jones averages. So you have two guys who basically average a first down every 2 touches, and the second half, you don't get them the ball. Your only points in the second half came because the Giants literally handed you the points on the safety at the end because they were just trying to bleed some clock out. That's it. So when you're talking about a team, and you think about against the Vikings, 7 points against the Vikings in the second half. Against the Bears, 3 points. At home, at Lambeau. Sunday Night Football against the Bears, you had 3 points in the second half. Against the Buccaneers, okay, you're going against a team that is decimated at the wide receiver position. They had a couple turnovers. Tampa did. You went goose egg in the second half. Did not score a point. Actually did not score after midway through the second quarter. Last week against the New England Patriots, you're in a dogfight with Bailey Zappi. Bailey Zappi looked good yesterday. We might have a quarterback controversy in New England. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there. Bailey Zappi, though, appears in his first NFL game. He's a raw 4th-round rookie. You're at home at Lambeau Field, and it takes a Mason Crosby walk-off field goal to beat them, to beat an average New England Patriots team. And then yesterday, double-digit lead on Daniel Jones. And when it was all said and done, when the final whistle was blown, it was Daniel Jones who had a better QBR than Aaron Rodgers and a better passer rating. We know Aaron's the king of passer rating, highest passer rating in NFL history. Daniel Jones beat him in that category. So Aaron Rodgers deserves blame. And we saw, I saw after the game, he was talking about he didn't like something Jair Alexander, the Packers star corner, said. He was talking about Jair Alexander said something along the lines of, I'm not concerned about our defense unless we win that next week. And Aaron Rodgers was like, man, we can't be talking like that. I have yet to see Aaron take 1 ounce of accountability, but that's nothing new. That's not shocking to me or any of you. But what we have to at some point wrap our arms around is that when the moment gets tight, when you need the head coach to make that call at that point in that game, Matt LaFleur's not that guy. He's not. He never has been. Never forget, he got hired by the Green Bay Packers. He was an offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. Offensive coordinator. You know where the Titans offense ranked that season? 30th. So when we put him in that category of the whizzes, like Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, he's not even those guys' ballpark. He, along with Aaron Rodgers, has lost back-to-back games at home at Lambeau Field as a favorite. Numerous times, over and over, in the biggest of moments, he has struggled to make in-game decisions. He has struggled mightily to adjust. So when people act like the Packers are a Super Bowl contender, when they act like the Packers are going to win the NFC North, I laugh. Because we know the greatness of Aaron Rodgers, although Aaron hasn't played all that well this season. When we understand the limitations they have at wide receiver. When we understand the fact that their defense has not been what I thought it would be this season. They're not beating Minnesota. Minnesota has a better coach, Kevin O'Connell. Obviously, they don't have a better quarterback, Kirk Cousins, but you see Justin Jefferson yesterday? He looked pretty good, didn't he? Running game, it's equal footing. You could argue the Packers have a better running game than the Vikings do. Here, you know what the problem is? Matt LaFleur doesn't get in the ball. Up double digits. That's a time when you need to be bleeding clock. You're facing Daniel Jones. You're not facing Patrick Mahomes. This is a situation where you got to be really aggressive and trying to make plays and get into a shootout. You're playing Daniel Jones. Okay, Saquon Barkley only had 74 yards yesterday, which is pretty good for most running backs. For Saquon Barkley, who's leading the league in yards from scrimmage, that's pretty good. I think you would take that if you're the Green Bay Packers. But this is a poorly coached football team. They struggle with adjustments. They struggle in late game situations, as you saw yesterday. And they're struggling defensively. So this is why I said when I picked the Packers to win, but only by 1, just because simply Aaron Rodgers is obviously a significantly better quarterback than Daniel Jones is. But when the Vegas line said Packers -8, I'm like, they got to be out of their minds. What have you seen from the Packers this season that has made you say, oh yeah, they're an 8-point favorite over a 3-1 team on a neutral site? Like that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm really missing stuff with the Green Bay Packers. But even in a weak NFC that we know is not as good as the AFC. AFC is just loaded with contenders. NFC's not. You tell me they could beat Philly in a playoff game? You're telling me they could beat Dallas? They can't beat the Niners. We've seen them lose twice to the Niners. You're telling me they could beat Minnesota? I just saw what Minnesota did in week 1. Smoked them. 23-7. Okay, defense shut Green Bay down. Heck, I'm not even sure they could beat the Rams today. The Rams got all kinds of issues. So, yeah, I didn't buy into the Packers this offseason. This is one of those games you have got to win. Okay, neutral site. By the way, that sounded like Lambeau Field. There was a lot of Packers fans in London yesterday. I didn't know they had that big of a following over there. But so you sort of have a home field advantage in a weird way. Okay, you've obviously got the quarterback advantage, offensive line advantage, defense equal footing, and I think you've got the running game advantage. But the Giants, unlike the Packers, were almost flawless situationally. Packers were not. And that's what decided it. Let's see. You know what? I like that, Grady. That's interesting. He says Daniel Jones is weird. He's like Mariota meets Goff at his peak meets Michael Vick. That is an interesting because like you look at Daniel Jones and he's kind of tall. He's built very similar to Eli Manning, right? Because a lot of people talk about Daniel Jones drafted, like he even in the face kind of looks like Eli a little bit, but unlike Eli, dude could move. And I've always talked about the show. Everybody clowned Daniel Jones when he tripped and fell in that game against the Eagles when he was going to score easily, and he tripped and fell instead of scoring a touchdown. And I said, just the fact that he was able to get down there is pretty darn impressive. Like most quarterbacks couldn't do that. But Mariota, I like the Mariota comparison. Yeah, I mean, it feels like they're kind of in that same ballpark. And Jared Goff did not play well yesterday whatsoever. And Grady says he's just a strange player. He is a strange player. You don't really know what you're getting from game to game. He said can be a good starting quarterback / productive one in the right system, but nothing more, in my opinion. I mean, again, there's clear limitations there. He doesn't have a great arm. Accuracy is all over the place at times. I mean, he made some throws yesterday. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And then he made some throws like, man, that was a good job fitting it in there to guys like not Sterling Shepard. Who's that 86? Slater. Made some good throws to Slater. But no, I think I've said for about a year he feels like a backup to me. But it like you said, if he's in the right system, which looks like Dable has, yeah, I mean, listen, he can win some games for you. If he's in the right system. And Grady also says, I'm a believer in the potential of Bailey Zappi. And he's got the lightning emoji. Zappy, zap. You get it. He says, I really want to see what he's got. Solid college career and put up numbers last year. By the way, him and Mac Jones look like brothers. It's funny. I saw a meme the other day that said Bailey Zappi looks like he could play Mac Jones in a movie. He kind of does. They bear a lot of facial resemblance. So, but no, Bailey Zappi's playing well. He did a decent job against the Packers last week, and then put on a nice show against the Lions. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Detroit. I think they did they shut him out? Yeah, they did. 29-0. So there you go. Now, albeit Detroit has the worst scoring defense in the NFL, but hey, listen, I got to give credit to Bailey Zappi looks pretty good. If nothing else, and see there goes Barry. There he goes. I'm out of here now. The Mac slander must end. LOL. Listen, you get on me about my support for Dak. And you're out here supporting Mac Jones, who, his backup is putting up numbers comparable to him. Like, come on now. Well, let's come on now. But hey, he's looking good. I mean, I can't hate. He's looking good. I think for sure he supplanted Brian Hoyer as the backup. If nothing else, Bailey Zappi is your backup quarterback. If God forbid Mac Jones gets hurt again, now could he replace Mac Jones? Who knows? I don't know where Mac Jones' health is right now. Again, that ankle injury did not look good against the Baltimore Ravens. Mac was in some serious pain, so we'll see when he can come back soon, maybe the next 2-3 weeks. I doubt he plays this week. Who do the Patriots play a week from now? New England. Hold on, I'm pulling it up. New England goes to Cleveland to play the Browns. Okay. Well, listen, they can win that game. That'll be one that'll be controlled in the trenches. Again, least sexy term in football, obviously, but that's kind of what it's been this year. A lot of teams run the football very well. Grady says Matt Patricia might be a real OC after all. Just kidding. No, Matt, I'm still not bought into Matt Patricia as an offensive coordinator. I just can't do it. I can't do it. But moving on now to a quarterback that, man, he's in that group. Like there's those few quarterbacks. It used to be 4, now it's down to 3. I'm done defending Russell Wilson. I said on Friday, I'm out. Yeah, I'm done with Russell Wilson. Okay, he's disappointed me too many times this season, on and off the field. I'm out on Russell Wilson. So it's now down to 3 quarterbacks who I defend like crazy. Dak Prescott, crap, I wear his hat 85% of my shows. Derek Carr, I love Derek Carr. I think he's in a tough position tonight, but I love Derek Carr. And Lamar Jackson. Now, the difference is Dak's gotten paid, Carr's gotten paid, Lamar has not. And we know about the contract issues. Not going to talk too much about that today because talk about other people's money makes my head hurt. But Lamar Jackson yesterday led the Ravens to a big division win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Big, similar to like the Bills last week, whose win ironically came against the Ravens. We know the Bills hadn't won a 1-score game since 2020. Like they went 0 for last year, including that, of course, that heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs in the playoffs. And so coming into Baltimore, coming back to beat the Ravens, winning a 1-score game, I think it was huge for the Bills' morale. And obviously, Buffalo looked unbelievable yesterday. They covered that 14-point spread and then some. I didn't think they would, but yeah, they did. But as far as Baltimore is concerned, as far as the Ravens are concerned, first of all, Really, really solid night by their secondary. Thought Marcus Peters played well. They got, obviously, no shocker. They got a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow. That offensive line is back to being bad. They had a couple decent weeks, okay, against the Jets and then against the Dolphins. They're back to being that same joke on the offensive line that I've been pulling my hair out over ever since Joe Burrow got drafted. As a matter of fact, it's the very reason I thought Joe Burrow would not succeed in the NFL was because that offensive line is so bad. But Lamar Jackson is, in terms of how some in the media and some fans look at him, he is suffering from the same scope, the same syndrome that Dak Prescott has suffered from for years. That's why I defend both. Because when Lamar Jackson wins games like last night, because we saw Lamar miss some wide open deep balls down the field. He's got to hit those receivers. He missed Duvernay one time, and I don't know if it was Duvernay or somebody else the other time down the right sideline. He's got to make those throws. I'm not here to defend him in that regard. But he did get the ball back down a point against a very good Cincinnati Bengals defense who've done a great job on him all night and drove him right down the field. And the greatest kicker of all time, yes, I said it, Justin Tucker, did what Justin Tucker always does, hit the game-winning field goal. But when Lamar Jackson wins, well, it's the system. He's a one-dimensional quarterback. He can't make those throws. Oh, that's okay. And then when Lamar Jackson plays darn near flawlessly, week 2 against the Miami Dolphins. Remember Tua threw 6 touchdowns in that game? Yeah, Lamar actually outplayed him. Had a better QBR and passer rating than Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah, but he lost. He can't win the big games. He can't win. He can win, obviously, games, but I'm talking about in some of the public eye, he can't win. Because in one regard, you're criticizing him for winning an ugly game, and then on the other hand, when he barely by the skin of his teeth, because of his defense, by the way, loses a shootout game, then he crushed him there because he lost. Like, which is it? Just tell me what your criticism of Lamar Jackson is. Listen, he's not the perfect passer. He is never, ever going to be Mahomes, Allen. He's never going to be those guys. So if that's your expectation, that's on you. It's not on Lamar. That's on you. But then when you say he can't pass, Lamar Jackson, as a matter of fact, leads the NFL. I saw this stat today. It says a lot. Lamar Jackson leads the NFL in touchdown passes from the pocket with 10. So just because he has a shaky night throwing the football, just because he did miss those deep balls, and listen, like I said, I'm not here to defend him there. He did not play the perfect game. He got outplayed by Joe Burrow yesterday. But you're telling me that in that situation, ugly as the game may be, Lamar's got the ball down 1. That's what Lamar does. Boop, 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 boop. Justin Tucker wins it with a field goal. That's what he does. He's got the clutch gene. He plays very well from behind. Last night's an aberration, right? He is typically a very good passer from the pocket. And obviously everybody knows about his ability to run the football. So when people say, and you say, well, what about Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Jimmy Garoppolo missed those throws against Denver and had the self-safety, and you were out here crushing him. Because Jimmy G and Lamar Jackson's winning percentage is very, very similar. It's like around that 70% area. Here's the difference. Baltimore wins because of Lamar Jackson. Don't believe me? Look at last year. What was their record without Lamar? You say, what's their record without Jimmy G? Well, I don't know. They had a young Trey Lance. They had Nick Mullins, C.J. Beathard. This isn't exactly, this isn't Steve Young and Joe Montana backing him up. You know what I'm saying? Backing up Jimmy Garoppolo. Whereas Jimmy, you see how he wins in the playoffs all the time? He's got a 4-2 record in the playoffs. Yeah, look at his numbers in those wins. It's about running the football and playing defense. Whereas Baltimore, it's Lamar, take us there. And 3 out of 5 times he has. Should be 4 out of 5 because his defense badly let him down against the Miami Dolphins. But they're sitting there at 3-2. And guess what? You look around today, the Baltimore Ravens are first in the AFC North. Just like I said they would be. I picked the Bengals to win this game, but I predicted the Ravens before the season will win the division. The secondary improved drastically from what it had looked like the previous 4 games. And Lamar Jackson, despite not playing the greatest last night, playing a very good defense, drove him right down the field. So all I want in the criticism of Lamar Jackson is consistency. That's all I'm asking for. Because in the games where he plays phenomenal, but they lose, and you crush him for losing, but then he doesn't play all that great, but they win because of him leading a game-winning drive, you rip him because he didn't play well. What do you care about? Do you care about playing well or winning? I'm fine with either. Okay, I'm fine with either, and it's perfect when it all comes together. When he plays well and they win, like the Patriots game or the Jets game in Week 1. But it doesn't always work this way. It's the NFL. Okay, this isn't college football where teams are putting up 50 points a game. Like, it's hard to win the NFL. Not that it's not in college, but NFL, everybody's a professional. So that's what I'm saying. You got to clean those things up. But yeah, let's see. Barry says Lamar is a winner. Respect to him. That's it. I mean, again, and that's why I say, and Barry, for those of you who don't know, has been not. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't call him a Lamar hater, right? Because there are legit Lamar haters out there. He's more skeptical about Lamar certainly than I am. But I mean, that's the thing. Do you value winning or playing well? Choose one or the other. I'm not going to bash you for choosing one or the other, but be consistent. That's all I'm saying for people out there that criticize Lamar. And of course, see, he had to get that in there. I'll take Lamar over Dak. Villain smile. I've always said, though, in the Lamar versus Dak discussion, it's kind of like what I talk about with best player in the world, Giannis and Steph. If you say Giannis is better than Steph, I disagree with you, but I'm not going to fight you on it. Giannis is great. If you want to say Lamar is better than Dak, I'd probably take Dak over Lamar, but I'm not crushing over that. No, I mean, listen, what Lamar's accomplished in this league, he's won an MVP. He's been successful in the playoffs. He's put up the numbers. He's won the games. I mean, he's a lot of game-winning drives, just like last night. Which, speaking of which, before I get to the more comments here, because I do want to get to those, let me pull this up. Okay, so Justin Tucker, and this is part of what makes him, to me, the greatest kicker ever. I get Adam Vinatieri had the Patriots' first 2 Super Bowls, right? Adam Vinatieri hit the game-winning field goal both times, both against the Rams and then against the Panthers. But in terms of just flat-out automatic consistency, to me, Justin Tucker's the best. Here, and this is remarkable to me. Okay, so after he hit that walk-off field goal last night, Justin Tucker has made 72 straight field goals in the second half and overtime, including an NFL record 59 straight in the fourth quarter and overtime. I mean, listen, that's what we bash kickers all the time. I'm very hard on kickers. You guys know that. I have no sympathy towards kickers. But Justin Tucker, I mean, when the stress, when the anxiety is at its peak, he's automatic. He's made 60 straight in the fourth quarter and overtime. That's what you need from your kicker. And by the way, that's why the Ravens compensated him pretty darn well this offseason. He's deserving of every penny. Kickers are very valuable, folks. Just ask the Arizona Cardinals. Ooh, that was tough. Grady said, any thoughts on the Tampa-Atlanta call? I'm a little biased because I'm a Brady fan, but give me a break. Atlanta isn't winning that game, even if they do get the ball and scored again. Tampa let them back in the game, would have won regardless, even if Brady had to get them into field goal range. Was it a bad call, though? Absolutely. But we're getting in the post to NFL. What we're getting is the post to NFL. Here's my thoughts. I was going to say this for later, but since you brought it up, Grady, I'll address it. I was trying to get the clip onto StreamYard, which is where I obviously stream to Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Wasn't able to get it on there, unfortunately, but I'm sure most of you have seen the clip by this point. I don't want to overreact because it's Monday. And by the way, I agree with you, Grady. I don't think Atlanta would have won the game even if they had gotten the ball back, because that was a third down, by the way. That's got to be the worst roughing the passer call I've ever seen in my life. I'm serious. Because, and I'll describe it to you the best way I can because I don't have the video. So for those of you that haven't seen it, Grady Jarrett comes in a stunt. He's an interior defensive lineman, but he actually comes around the edge to Brady's left on Brady's blind side. Obviously, Brady sees him, so he's trying to roll out to his right, get out of there. He can't in time. And so Grady Jarrett grabs him and then, spins him down. Doesn't land on Tom Brady, doesn't hit him late. What we would know is the typical roughing the passer. No. He grabbed him, went down with Tom. There's a way to sack Tom because we know, guys, I always say this all the time. There's no defensive player out there that wants to be the guy that ends Tom Brady's career. Okay, because they will go down infamy and they'll have to hear about it for the rest of their lives. So they don't want to be that guy. They want to sack Tom, want to take him to the ground. It's what they make. It's why they're paid what they're paid to do. But they don't want to hurt Tom. Grady Jarrett was not trying to hurt Tom there. And so, listen, look, folks, I'm sure this is what Tom Brady's saying. He's like, man, I really can play till 50. I can play, as long as I want because of calls like this. Listen, if that was Patrick Mahomes, do I think that gets called? No, I don't. That's not a shot at Tom Brady. But man, like that is as bad as it gets. But I do agree with you though, Grady. I do not think Atlanta would have won the game. It felt like in that fourth quarter, Atlanta scored those 15 unanswered points. Tampa kind of let their foot off the gas. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. They're not playing. They're not giving Atlanta a shot to hit any plays down the field. Not like they would have anyway, because they're not a deep ball throwing team because they have Marcus Mariota at quarterback. But let's see. See, there you go. My man John Rivera. He has a right to be happy today. There you go. Jets. Jets. There you go. Hey, the Jets got a winning record. 3-2. And by the way, I want to say a thank you to the New York Jets because that was my upset of the week. Now, I did not, unfortunately, the upset of the week had to come off of another concussion to a Dolphins quarterback, in this case being Teddy Bridgewater, who himself has a history with concussions. He had a really scary one back in, I think it was 2015, when he was the quarterback of the Vikings. Had a real scary one against the, at the time, St. Louis Rams. But yeah, hope Teddy heals up quickly. They had, I forgot what that kid's name, Skylar Thompson, I think is the kid's name that replaced Teddy Bridgewater for the rest of that game. But listen, thank you to the Jets. That was my upset of the week, and they came through for me. Grady says, still think it's an overreaction by the media, though, talking about Lamar Jackson or talking about the Tampa Bay roughing the passer. Grady says, Tucker is simply the new Adam Vinatieri. Guy is a baller. I do confess I love and miss the days of Billy Cundiff in a Ravens uniform, though. He was really good. I know, if I'm not mistaken, was Billy Cundiff the kicker? I'm not trying to like be brutal on him. I promise I'm not, because listen, this is tough. But if I'm not mistaken, was Billy Cundiff not the guy who missed the field goal at the end of the AFC Championship game against the Patriots that would have tied it and sent it to overtime? Because it was like a 30-yard field goal. Because Flacco threw a pass. Joe Flacco threw a pass back in the end zone. That's, it's a touchdown, but the guy just flat out drops it. There's just it's not forced out. He just flat out dropped the pass, which it would have won it and sent the Ravens to the Super Bowl that year. They would have faced the Giants in what would have been, the second Patriots-Giants Super Bowl. But yeah, no, Billy Cundiff was a good kicker though. But Grady says that's why I miss him. That's good. Grady says that's why I miss him. Oh, that's good. That's good, man. Yeah, see, you set me up there. Grady. Oh, that's funny. But no, that was like one of the most infamous plays of the Patriots dynasty, in my view, at least, because they got to how many AFC Championship games in a row? Like 8? I think it was. No, it might have been 9. Let's see, 11. No, it was 8. It was 8 straight AFC Championship games from the 2011 season to the 2018 season with Tom Brady. But yeah, they y'all got kind of lucky on that one. I'm not gonna lie. All due respect to the great Tom Brady, but yeah, I got a little lucky on that one. Moving on to somebody who is unemployed today, and that is Matt Rhule. He was fired today by the Carolina Panthers after a 1-4 start to the season, and overall he coached the Panthers to a record of 11-27. First of all, it was time to move on. Okay, I was one who loved the Matt Rhule hiring back in 2020. Okay, I hated that they fired Ron Rivera. I was very vocal about that on the show at the time. But they hired Matt Rhule. I'm like, hey, look, listen, this guy has a history of rebuilding programs. He went to Temple. He rebuilt Temple. He went to Baylor in a awful situation in Baylor following the Art Briles scandal, and he took Baylor within 2-3 years to the Big 12 championship game. So I'm like, okay, this guy has a history of building struggling programs, or in this case, a struggling NFL franchise. He has a history of building crap, back to relevance. It didn't work. Now, some of that was the fact that he never had anything close to a franchise quarterback because he had Teddy Bridgewater in 2020, he had Sam Darnold in 2021, and he had Baker Mayfield in 2022. So it's not like he's getting a lot of competence out of that position. I mean, they had their moments. Teddy and Sam and Baker had their moments, but it wasn't anything close to what you need to even be a playoff contender, much less a Super Bowl contender. But here's sort of my thoughts. Matt Rhule, first of all, I think he's going to be up for one of the big jobs in college next year. You know, you're talking about a Wisconsin, maybe a Nebraska out there. You know, two former Big Ten powerhouses could go after Matt Rhule with his history of rebuilding struggling college programs back up. So Matt Rhule's going to have a job next year, probably as a head coach in college. He's a very good college head coach. He just he simply didn't fit the NFL. I read some reports about how and we see this a lot with college coaches. They tend to struggle in the NFL, most of them for this reason. They coach pros like they coach college players, and it just simply doesn't work. You know, that happened. Warren Sapp felt that way when John Gruden was the head coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks 2 decades ago, and it did not sit well with Warren Sapp. It doesn't sit well with any professional. And so I think sort of that, not old school, because Matt Rhule is still a fairly young guy, but I think the sort of rah-rah type, not that coaches can't be rah-rah, but sort of, again, treating NFL players like they're college players, it just didn't work. And, you know, he had some issues at times with the media. At the end of the day, here's what the Carolina Panthers have to do. We know that they're going to a full-out rebuild. They traded for Baker Mayfield in hopes that, you know, maybe he could do. Baker's awful. Now, Baker's going to be out for a few weeks. He's got an ankle injury, so we're thinking, I think, 2 to 3 weeks with him, whether he can come back. So for the time being, PJ Walker is the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers, but they're going to, heck, they very well could trade Baker to be somebody's backup. I don't think that'll be the case, but I'm not ruling it out. They need to move Christian McCaffrey. They've been in trade talks with teams for years. They were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes last offseason, and the Houston Texans wanted Christian McCaffrey in a deal, and, you know, it just wasn't able to come through. But Christian McCaffrey, they need to go in and move him, get some picks, maybe get some players for him. DJ Moore, I suggested, hey, Dallas Cowboys, go get DJ Moore. Green Bay Packers could be, you know, listen, DJ Moore would absolutely be the best receiver to me on the Green Bay Packers. I'd absolutely take him over Allen Lazard. So Packers, go get a deal done with the Panthers for DJ Moore. Brian Burns as well. You know, there's some teams that could use him. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of guys that could really, really help some teams that are trying to contend for a Super Bowl while also helping the Panthers in their rebuild. Okay, they need picks. I don't think they have a 3rd, 5th, or 7th round pick, if I'm not mistaken, next draft. So they need all the picks they can get. They need all the pieces that they can pull into that franchise in order to rebuild it. Never forget, this was a team that made 2 Super Bowls in about a 12, 13-year span. So this was Carolina, you know, they were one of the expansion teams in the 90s along with the Jaguars. They've always been a respected franchise. And so going through this rough patch right now, I think moving Matt Rhule, going and doing it early in season is the right thing to do. I think Steve Wilkes is going to be the interim head coach. We know he was the head coach of the Cardinals back in 2018. So again, we'll see how that works. Carolina, an argument today could be made that Carolina is probably the worst team in the NFL. So they have a ways to go. This is a team that's got some work to do, but if you can move some of those guys, get some picks, and just fully commit to this rebuild. We know David Tepper is a very aggressive owner. You know, he's got, you know, little patience. But again, as I've talked about the Bill Parcells rule with quarterbacks, but I think it also applies to head coaches, is that year one, you just kind of want to see some progress going through the growing pains of being a head coach. If year 2, you want to start seeing something, you want to start seeing some kind of a significant jump from year 1. And if by year 3, you still haven't gotten to where I think you need to go ahead and move him. I mean, look at Brian Daboll with the Giants. Right off the bat, they're 4-1. The New York Giants, they won 4 games last year. They've won 4 games already this year. Like a lot of times a coach just comes in and it is immediate. Okay, the Los Angeles Rams were garbage in 2016. I think they went 4-12. Jared Goff looked like he shouldn't even be in the league. Sean McVay gets hired. They win the division, go to the playoffs. The next year, they get to the Super Bowl. A few years after that, they win the Super Bowl. So a lot of these truly great coaches, it's pretty quick. You notice pretty quick, okay, like, all right, we got the guy. We got the guy that can take us to where we think we need to go as a franchise. But it was the right move to make. Grady Edwards, who, again, as he detailed earlier, he said he's Patriots 1A, he's Panthers 1B because he's from Charlotte. He's a Panthers fan. So he says, Byron Leftwich is my first choice for the Carolina Panthers. Guys I want them to pursue. We're not getting Sean Payton, and Dan Quinn is a decent/okay head coach, but I don't think I want a recycled name. Unless we bring back Ron Rivera because he might be in the hot seat in Washington, though I don't think it's warranted. His staff was really terrible. Yeah. Although I will say, though, at the end for Rivera, I think Sean McDermott, the year the Panthers went 15-1 and lost in the Super Bowl to Denver, I think Sean McDermott was the defensive coordinator, and we see the job that he's done in Buffalo. But yeah, I mean, that's fair, though. Overall, his staffs weren't that of Andy Reid. Let's put it that way. But back to I like that. Byron Leftwich, the job he's done in Tampa as the offensive coordinator, giving him a shot. He's a young offensive mind. You're probably going to draft a quarterback. I mean, listen, there is no better time for the Panthers to go into rebuild. Like, don't drag this out. See, maybe Matt Rhule turns around. No, just go into the full rebuild. You're going to have a chance at C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis. Hey, let's start talking about my man Hendon Hooker, Hendo Cinco at the University of Tennessee. Hendo for Heisman? I'm just saying. But let's put that aside. The Panthers are going to have an opportunity to draft one of these young quarterbacks. And so bringing in, by the way, Byron Leftwich, a former quarterback, an offensive coach. Bring him in, have that good relationship with your young guy, be able to develop him, be able to get some of those picks that you get from, from trading some of these guys. Carolina could be right back to where, we expect them to be in just a few years. John says, I hope McCaffrey gets traded to Buffalo. I read today that the Bills are in discussions to get McCaffrey, which good night if they get him. Man. That's part of it. They could use him too because the Bills have kind of struggled at times with running the football and developing a consistent run game. If Christian McCaffrey, and knock on wood, man, he's struggled. His biggest issue has been injuries. If he stays healthy, man, that would be something if the Bills pick him up. And John just said Bills are all in. They should just go for a full rebuild. Absolutely. Be a win for both sides. Grady, my Panthers need to get a tight end. Haven't had one since Greg Olson. Yeah. Oh, Grady said, sorry, Matt Rhule's staff is very terrible, not Rivera. He had a solid staff. Yeah. No, the Matt Rhule staffs were not good. Yeah, Greg Olson, man. And Greg Olson, by the way, is a very good broadcaster, by the way. He's done a good job. He was hired full-time last year, done a great job with the number one Fox team this year with Kevin Burkhardt. Like, I really like Greg Olson as an announcer. But yeah, he was, until injuries got him at the end in Carolina, he was solid, man. I mean, consistent, Pro Bowl level player. He was kind of a security blanket for Cam Newton, was a big time leader for that team. Yeah, I mean, if you could bring in a guy who's even slightly resembles what Greg Olson brought on and off the field in the locker room, that in itself would be huge. The Panthers rebuild. It's something else for rebuilds too. And I know he's not the most popular of people right now, Draymond Green, but he said something on his podcast. It's obviously talking about the NBA, but I think it also applies to the NFL and any sport. When you have veterans, the reason that a lot of these rebuilds end up not working, you don't have any seasoned vets to come in and teach the young kids. And Carolina is one of the youngest teams in the NFL. So, and they're going to get even younger now that when they make some of these deals, make some of these trades, we assume. But bring in veterans, bring in guys that can, along with the coaches, because sometimes, I know Bruce Arians talked about this before, sometimes if the coach tells a player something, it's in one ear, out the other. But when that same thing is repeated by one of his older teammates that, has some real cachet in the locker room, like, it sticks more. So if I'm the Panthers in free agency, grab some veterans that fit what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build, along with some of the young guys that you bring in. Because that's the way to do the rebuild. But of course, it all starts with hiring a new head coach. Again, Leftwich would be a tremendous choice, and drafting one of these young quarterbacks without a question. Who knows? The Panthers could have the number one pick. They could. I thought Atlanta would be worse than them. Atlanta's got some playmakers. Drake London's all right. Okay, Kyle Pitts, we know what he can do. And Marcus Mariota's done a good enough job. But Before we move to prediction time, not just NFL predictions, but baseball predictions. I'm going to predict the MLB Division Series, American League and National League. There's some very, very intriguing matchups, and I got a big upset in there, but I'll save that for a second. But, let's see. We got a comment here. Grady said, what happened to Baker? He might be finished. If Baker Mayfield does not take a backup job next year, he out the league. He done. Because and this is kind of what we saw with Cam Newton. Although at least Cam Newton won an MVP at some point. At least Cam Newton had some pretty good years in there. Baker's had one decent year. He had a solid rookie year, played all right in 2020, but was bad in 2019, was bad last year. If you want to give him the injury excuse, okay, but is he injured now? Well, he is injured now. But before the ankle injury, how was Baker looking? I mean, I know Grady's a lot higher than Baker than I am, but man, I think he's still last in the NFL in QBR. Like, geez, and of course, John, let's go Yankees. I'm sure most of the fans in New York City are pretty happy today that obviously the Yankees are about to start their series with the Cleveland Guardians, and the New York Mets season is over, despite winning 101 games. My heart, listen, I'm a Red Sox fan, and so I always consider the Mets an ally because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And both the Red Sox and obviously the Red Sox have a much more extensive history with the Yankees. They have much more what you would call a traditional rivalry because both teams have gotten the better of one another. Whereas with the Yankees and Mets, it's been pretty one-sided with the Yankees. But listen, Red Sox and Mets, we cool with each other. We put 86 behind us. Us Red Sox fans, especially since we broke the curse in 2004, ever since then, we've been able to move past that. Oh, wow. Okay, this is a big statement by Grady. He says, I'm out on Baker after yesterday, probably closer in your camp now. And he says, after the Arizona and 49ers games. Yeah, no, gosh, he was awful. And to me, yesterday against San Francisco is predictable. Okay, Baker is a mistake-prone quarterback going against that defense. Okay, it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen. And then against Arizona, gosh, it was just awful. That Arizona might have been worse just because Arizona does not have a very good defense. They've improved over the last few weeks, but I don't look at them as even close to the level of a Niners defense, and Baker was still bad, which tells me he's a backup quarterback. If he wants to stay in the NFL, I think he probably does. It's just a wild guess of mine. He may have to accept this backup quarterback role. But I think something that's interesting though about Carolina too is Matt Rhule comes in as an offensive coach. And the offense is garbage. Like when you bring in a coach and his specialty is one side of the ball, you want him to fix that, especially if you got issues offensively. Panthers offense was garbage. Okay. Some of that was the McCaffrey injuries, but geez. Like it didn't improve at all. I mean, but think about the Giants. Brian Daboll is an offensive coach. Daniel Jones is a limited quarterback. Giants offense is still pretty good. Like so some of this just comes down to coaching, but again, we'll see where the Panthers go from here. All right, so we are now we're down to 8, 22 teams, 22 Major League Baseball teams who had any hopes whatsoever. Some of them obviously unrealistic because teams like say the A's and the Reds were in a complete rebuild, but 22 teams who had any hopes of competing for that Commissioner's Trophy, competing for a World Series title in 2022. It's over. They're done. It's down to 8. It's down to 8. 4 in the American League, 4 in the National League. So I went 2-2 on my picks last week. I predicted correctly, ironically, in the American League, the Guardians would beat the Rays, and that the Mariners would beat the Blue Jays. I did. By the way, sorry to delay, but that comeback by Seattle on Toronto in that game too. Holy smokes! Down 8-1 in the 6th. I mean, it wasn't like Toronto just hit them with an onslaught the first couple innings, and then the Mariners slowly started to claw their way back. No, the Mariners are down 8-1, and they end up winning the game 10-9. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm telling you, the Mariners, to me, are the second best team in the American League. I've been saying that for 2 months. Ever since the All-Star break, they are the second best team to me to the Houston Astros in the American League. And by the way, they face each other, which I will predict in just a second. And then the National League, I went 0-2. I was kicking myself because I swear to you, I almost predicted the Phillies to beat the Cardinals. I said that last week, and they ended up sweeping them, which, hats off hats off to Yadier Molina and to Albert Pujols on a great career. I was happy for them, despite the loss, that they were able to get a hit before their careers came to an end. Both absolutely will be enshrined in Cooperstown 5 years from now, without a question. But we got 8 teams left. Let's get it on. We're going to start in where we start in the American League. Okay, we're starting the American League with what to me is the unofficial de facto American League Championship Series, even though it's coming in the Division Series between 2 division rivals, 2 AL West teams. It's the Seattle Mariners, it's the Houston Astros. And when I look at this series, what each teams do, it's a very fascinating matchup. It's very similar, just like I call it, like the NBA Finals a little bit. Like what Boston did, Golden State did well, and what one team did, the other team did better. That's what it feels like. Both teams have tremendous pitching staffs. Okay, we know about Justin Verlander, and I said coming in this year, Justin Verlander's going to have a big year. Coming off that injury, despite being 39 years old, it's part of the reason I had the Astros getting to the World Series before the season began. Verlander's been unbelievable. Okay, the entire, Framber Valdez, all those guys to the Astros have been excellent. And we know about the bats. We know about Altuve. We know about Bregman. We know about Yordan Alvarez, who's been, almost like the second coming. This sounds sacrilegious for me to say, but almost like the second coming of Big Papi. Okay, he's been great. And so, guys like Kyle Tucker. That's the thing that is so fascinating about the Houston Astros, is I feel like they are, without question, the biggest threat to me, the favorites, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Deep pitching staff, outstanding bullpen, and the lineup 1 through 9 is unbelievable. And so you have Seattle coming in, who got off to a rough start at the beginning of the season, won 15 straight or whatever it was coming into the All-Star break, made the deal to bring in some pitching. We know Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, Toronto wouldn't even pitch to him during the series. Okay, he got his money this season. He's got a 14-year deal, so props to him. But when you're talking about a Seattle Mariners team that has a little Cinderella feel to it, right? You've got the manager, who's been excellent. You've got all these components to this team that's gotten them to this point, that won them 90 games, that won them that series over the Toronto Blue Jays. They're going to need every bit of that in this series, obviously starting with home field disadvantage against their division rival Astros. So, thing is, if you're down 8-1 to Houston, you're not winning that game. Okay, Toronto's bullpen is not very good. They fell apart late. I guess that shouldn't be a huge surprise. Astros bullpen is a whole different ballgame. Trust me, ask my Red Sox last year. They struggled badly late in innings in the ALCS against Houston. I think this goes to a deciding Game 5. I really do. And in that Game 5, I think when it's all said and done, that Dusty Baker is able to push all the right buttons, do what he needs to do. Give me the Houston Astros to win this series. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, Division Series is a best of 5. I think the Astros win it in 5, 3-2 over the Seattle Mariners. They advance to the ALCS for now the 6th consecutive year. Yeah, 6th consecutive year. They've been in the ALCS every year since 2017. We know about the cheating scandal. We know about their issues. But you can't say nothing about the Houston Astros in terms of they've been dominant with or without the trash cans. It is what it is. Astros advance the ALCS once again. Who will they meet? Cleveland or New York? Guardians, Yankees. Okay, so the Yankees in this series coming off a 99-win season. Number 99, Aaron Judge, obviously with the historic accomplishment, hitting 62 home runs. The Yankee record, and more importantly, the American League record all-time. Aaron Judge is going to get the bag in the offseason. Brian Cashman said as much. He said he's got a pot of gold awaiting him at the end of the season. There's no question he is deserving of every penny. But here's the thing for the New York Yankees that I've worried about for years now, and they really haven't addressed it that much. The Yankees are an organization that leans heavily, a lot like the Tampa Bay Rays, one of their division rivals. They lean heavily into analytics. And to me, analytics have their place. You should use analytics. I've always said that. But when they are making the decisions for you, that's when it starts to get in the way. And in terms of how the Yankees have put together their roster, in terms of their lineup, it's kind of been Aaron Judge or bust. And a lot of times when it's been just Aaron Judge or bust, it's been bust, okay? When they went 10-18 in the month of August, almost blew the division lead to Toronto and to Tampa, Aaron Judge hit 9 homers that month. Like, he was great. Aaron Judge was Aaron Judge that month. It didn't matter. The pitching isn't very good. Okay, Garrett Cole, we know his history in the postseason. He's a Cy Young caliber starting pitcher in the regular season. In the postseason, again, last year against my Red Sox, different story. I mean, he was pulled in, I think, like the second or third inning, and the Yankees had to ride their bullpen. Aroldis Chapman, look, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what got into this dude's head to where he missed a workout because he was in Miami. Aroldis Chapman will not be available for this series. He is not on the playoff roster for this division series against Cleveland. The thing about the Guardians is this. They're not going to beat you with the long ball. They are kind of the opposite of the Yankees. They are not going to beat you with the home run ball. But in some ways, they are very, very similar to the Kansas City Royals. Kansas City Royals, who in 2014 made the World Series and in 2015 won the World Series. Relying heavily on pitching, which is what you got to do in the postseason. Guys who come up with big, timely hits, which of course we saw 15-inning, snooze fest, if we can call it that, in the postseason against the Tampa Bay Rays on Saturday afternoon in Cleveland. So they're going to rely on their lineup, which has been excellent. Okay, hitting for average. They're not going to beat you with the long ball, but getting on base, smart base running, and the starting pitching led by, of course, Shane Bieber, who's once again in the American League Cy Young race. And what it comes down to as well in the postseason, we know you got to have the pitching and the hitting. It comes down to the managers. And if we're talking my man, two-time champion with my Red Sox, Terry Francona or Aaron Boone, I'm going Cleveland. I'm going for it. Guardians upset the Yankees 3-2. Now, of course, this will not be any heartbreak to me. I'm not going to be on this show crying when the Yankees lose. But I'm taking the Cleveland Guardians to upset, shock the world, upset the New York Yankees. They closed the season better than the Yankees did. They're coming in with more momentum. They've got a better manager. They've got a better rotation. They got guys that get on base more consistently than the Yankees do. And it feels like the Yankees, because of their late season struggles, have been on the back page of the New York Times. Why? Because of Aaron Judge's historic season, the historic 62 homers. So because of that, because of the fact that Cleveland's been under the radar all season, closed August and September, which is where the games really matter, folks, before you get in October, closed the season excellent, took care of business against the Twins and the White Sox in their division to hold them off, to win the American League Central. Give me the Cleveland Guardians, the shocker of the world, to beat the New York Yankees, to upset the New York Yankees in 5 games and advance to the American League Championship Series. Moving on to the National League, we got another divisional matchup. Actually, we got 2 divisional matchups in the National League in this division series. Philadelphia Phillies in the playoffs, first time since 2011, taking on the reigning, defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves. Now, we know about Atlanta. It feels like a wash, rinse, and repeat in 2021. They got up to a rough start last year. They weren't over 500 until August. Of course, we know they ended up winning the World Series over the Houston Astros. This year, they got off to a similar start, although they sort of peaked around July, August, and especially in September, sweeping the Mets over that weekend, over the last weekend of the regular season, to win the to win the National League East over the Mets and over the Philadelphia Phillies, who they'll, of course, be playing. We know about the Braves. Dansby Swanson has had an excellent year. Okay, all their big bats have been great. They've showed that sort of championship DNA all season long. Brian Snitker's done a great job. And then as for the Philadelphia Phillies, right, they come in. Aaron Nola, no shock to anybody, was phenomenal in that Game 2 win, that Game 2 shutout win over the St. Louis Cardinals. Bryce Harper with timely hits. Okay, my man Kyle Schwarber coming up big. So you have the bats. You have guys like Segura, who had that big hit at the end of Game 1. Philly, 1 through 9, has one of the better lineups in the postseason. They're going to need it desperately against an Atlanta Braves team whose strength is obviously in their rotation. I think when it's all said and done, I'm going to take the Atlanta Braves to win the series. I thought about a sweep, but I'll take them to beat the Phillies, who I should have predicted to beat the Cardinals. Otherwise, I would have went 3-1 in my picks. But I think this series will be over in 4 games. Braves advance over their division rival Phillies, and they get back to the National League Championship Series for the 3rd consecutive year. And they will meet the winner of the San Diego Padres and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, what do we know about the Padres? Once again, we keep repeating this phrase, but it's so important in the postseason, and that's pitching. Okay, Yu Darvish in that Game 1 win over the New York Mets set the tone. Max Scherzer had a bad night, giving up 4 homers. The guys like Josh Bell, Machado played well. I'm forgetting that other guy's name. The leadoff man for the Padres, his name escapes me at this particular moment in time. But a Padres lineup that's missing Fernando Tatis. But adding Juan Soto at the deadline, relying even for the beginning of the season because of the loss of Tatis due to suspension and injury, relying on pitching. Because they come into that series, shock the Mets, win 2 out of 3 in Queens, New York at Citi Field to advance to play for the second straight series, a 100-win team. Playing, to me, without a shadow of a doubt, the best team in Major League Baseball. How many teams, folks, could go out there, despite the loaded roster they have, lose their number 2 starter, really their number 1 starter, who's a Cy Young candidate, and win 111 games? You think about that. They were threatening for a while there to possibly reach Seattle's record. I think 118, if I'm not mistaken, is the record that the 0-1 Mariners, who didn't even get to the championship series, and the 1906 Chicago Cubs was able to. Was it 1906? It was the Cubs in the earliest 20th century. Dodgers were threatening that for a while. We know what my man Mookie Betts does. It still breaks my heart into a million pieces that he is not still wearing a Red Sox uniform. But the addition of Freddie Freeman, who was in till the last day of the regular season, he was in the running for the batting title. He has been an exceptional addition to this Dodgers roster, to this Dodgers lineup that's been excellent all season long. So due to Clayton Kershaw, I know people bashed him for his record in the postseason. It's not great. But 2020, he got over the hump. He didn't pitch last year due to injury. So coming back in the postseason, he's hungry. He's ready to go. You have guys like Tony Gonsolin, who was excellent. He's up there in wins in Major League Baseball and in the National League. Julio Urias had a great ERA as well. So bringing those guys in, your 2 and 3 starters are going to be key in this series against a great Padres pitching staff. But something else, too. I know Padre is Spanish for father. No team in Major League Baseball, I think, certainly among good teams, has been the quote-unquote Padre of the Padres other than the Dodgers. Dodgers have owned the Padres. I think that's going to continue. They will sweep this series 3-0, the only sweep, I think, of the Division Series. They sweep the Padres, their division rival, to once again advance to the National League Championship Series, and they will meet the Braves for the 3rd consecutive year. They met in 2020. Of course, the Braves blew that 3-1 lead. Dodgers went on to win the World Series for the first time since '88. And then last year, the Braves got revenge, beating the Dodgers in 6 games to advance to, and of course, win the World Series. So there you go. So just going back over it, I got Astros in 5 against best of 5. Astros in 5 over the Mariners. The upset, Guardians over the Yankees in 5. Braves over the Phillies in 4. And Dodgers over the Padres in 3. Hope y'all liked my Padre joke there. Grady Edwards, go Braves. Hope they can get her done this season. Feeling good about them. How far did they go? Also, do you think the Braves name is safe as far as potential name changes? I think the name is probably safe from potential changes. How far do I think they can go? They can go all the way. Managing, their starting pitching, and their bats all season long. Now, I watched a couple of their series very closely against St. Louis and then against, obviously, the Mets a couple weekends ago, and how they swept the Mets to win the National League East. The timely hits, especially by Dansby Swanson, who's like my dad's favorite player currently in the whole world. He's kind of a throwback type of guy. He can hit for power, but he can also get on base consistently. It's been unbelievable. I mean, Dansby Swanson in clutch situations has been remarkable. So talk about the guys that they've got in that lineup. They've been excellent. Again, obviously we know about guys like Acuna and company, but this Braves team has an excellent opportunity to go back-to-back. And how long has it been? I think we haven't had a back-to-back champion since the Yankees in the late 90s, which means we haven't had a back-to-back World Series champions in the 21st century. So if the Braves do it, hey, good for the Braves. Good for the Braves, because they put together a heck of a run here, winning 5 straight division titles and now being in position to win a 2nd straight World Series title. And of course, Grady says, wish they still had Freddie still. Yeah, that's he was the leader of that clubhouse for a long time, man, and he's doing great things with the Dodgers. got his money over there. I really did think last offseason that he would stay in Atlanta. I really, truly did. But props to him. He's a great, great dude. It made me emotional. I'm not even a Braves fan, but it made me emotional when, was it in May? I think it was either May or June when Freddie Freeman returned to Atlanta at Truist Park, and that every at bat, he tipped his cap to the fans, and they were all giving a standing ovation. Like, it was a really, really cool moment. Freddie's a great, great human being, great role model, and obviously a great baseball player who has a very, very good opportunity to himself be enshrined in Cooperstown one day, and he himself will have a chance to win back-to-back championships. But it's funny, like the Braves and Dodgers, that series has decided the World Series champion. Did in 2020, and it did in 2021. So who knows? Maybe it could this year. I think they'll meet in the NLCS once again, and that'll be interesting. If both teams stay healthy, that feels like a 6 or 7 gamer, without a doubt. Now, I'm not done with predictions. Not ready to get out of here quite yet. Shifting back to the NFL, we've got a big one tonight. Okay, we got a divisional matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, two teams. I would say two teams. It felt like one team had high expectations coming into this year, that being, of course, the Raiders, coming off of a playoff appearance last year with an interim coach. They bring in Josh McDaniels, they bring in Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones, and they're off to a slow start. They're 1-3, and they started 0-3. They got over a win over Mr. Let's Ride last week. But, for the Raiders, I think they would be the 7th 0-3 team in history to make the playoffs, which seems like a long shot, and it is. And I'm not a big fan of Mike McDaniel, although I'm not a fan of his either. Josh McDaniels. But I believe in. I believe in Derek Carr, and I believe in Devontae Adams. But let's go into the predictions right now. Monday Night Football. We got Chiefs. We got Raiders. Chiefs in this game are favored by 7, so basically a full touchdown over their division rival. Here's to me what I'm looking at. Okay, for Kansas City. They're coming in, big-time momentum win on the road, Super Bowl rematch against Tampa Bay. They pull it out at the end at 41. Was it 40? I think 42-31 was the final score. Kansas City was just, fantastic. Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things. They ran the ball very effectively, and that's kind of what I'm going to focus on, is their ability to run the ball. Vegas's defense has not been great stopping the run. I think Kansas City's going to attack that early, bait the Raiders defense into sort of loading the box a little bit, and then they're going to do damage. Kansas City this year, because of loss of Tyreek Hill in the offseason, they haven't had those type of over-the-top plays, which, isn't that surprising to us, right? Because they have guys like Mecole Hardman, we know has got wheels in, Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore. But certainly those guys aren't even the same galaxy as Tyreek Hill in terms of over-the-top ability. And we know, obviously, about the best security blanket in the National Football League, that being Travis Kelce. That offensive line has been up and down. It's dealt with some injuries. But against a Raiders secondary that for the second straight year, and it's why I never bought into the Raiders as Super Bowl contenders. Playoff contenders, yes, not Super Bowl contenders. That secondary, folks, is awful. And Patrick Mahomes has exposed it as such, because in 8 games against the Las Vegas Raiders, Patrick Mahomes has a passer rating of 112. He's thrown for 2,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 3 picks. And he's got a 7-1 record, by the way. Translation, he owns the Las Vegas Raiders. It don't matter if they're still in Oakland, if they move to Sin City, it don't matter. And so at Arrowhead Stadium, Chiefs are riding high. They feel good about themselves. And also, they want to make sure people know who they are before next week's matchup, the game of the year between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. I cannot imagine what the ratings for that game are going to be after how that game ended last year. So Kansas City, they don't want to win. They don't like the Raiders. They don't like the Raiders. The Raiders, remember last year at Arrowhead, they were talking smack at pregame, and they were like dancing on the Chiefs midfield logo. Yeah, and then 49-3 happened. So this is a team that, there's some teams, just like I was talking about with the Dodgers, the Padres, there's some division teams that just have the other team's number. And that, I think, is going to continue tonight. I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to win 38-17. They will cover that 7-point spread in style. They'll drop the Raiders to 1-3. They themselves will elevate to 4-1 before that big matchup. Man, I can't wait that we're all going to be watching against the equally 4-1 Buffalo Bills. Kansas City wins this one tonight, 38-17, and goes to 4-1. They win over the Las Vegas Raiders. Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to say I'm going to say it's 3 touchdowns. I think they rush for 2. Again, I think they're going to get started with the running game, really lean on that with Edwards-Helaire. But, get the Vegas defense to kind of, to come in a little bit, and then they're going to hit him over the top with guys like Hardman, Juju, obviously Travis Kelce and company. Let's see. We got some comments here. Grady says, got Devontae Jacobs, Travis Kelce playing tonight. Josh McDaniels better not mess it up tonight for me. Carr is Tony Romo 2.0. He can be elite, but he can be awful. He's such a frustrating player. That being said, give him any day as my quarterback when starting a franchise. 100%. That's a good comparison to Tony Romo. He's more durable than Tony was, certainly at the end. But yeah, but listen, Tony had those moments. To me, the ultimate, if you had to ask me, what was Tony Romo? And I'd say 2013, week 5 against the Denver Broncos. Went blow for blow with the great Peyton Manning. Threw 5 touchdown passes, threw for 500 yards, but threw the interception at the end that cost the Cowboys, and the Broncos ended up winning it with the walk-off field goal. And that's the thing. I was never a big Tony Romo fan in terms of, can he win the big games? He was clutch. That's the thing for Tony. In terms of game when he drives, Tony Romo's thinking top 10 all time. So if you kind of like what I was talking about with Lamar earlier, if you give Tony Romo the ball, a chance to win the game, more times than not, more than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, he usually came through for you. And I always felt like Tony Romo was a guy that was capable when the right pieces were around him, like say in 2014, of winning the Super Bowl. But unfortunately for him, he was never able to hoist that Lombardi trophy. And Derek Carr, yeah, that's a good comparison. He feels like he feels like a similar type guy. Grady, Mahomes versus Josh Allen. Seems like we've seen this before. Brady versus Peyton Manning. Yep. And it's funny, I actually talked about that after the game of the year last year. I think we'd all agree on that. The game of the decade. The Bills game versus the Chiefs in the divisional round. And I said the next day, this is the new Brady Manning. Okay, these guys are going to meet in the playoffs basically every year. The last couple of years has been an Arrowhead. Patrick Mahomes still, 5 years into his career, has yet to play a road playoff game, which speaks to his dominance along with the likes of Andy Reid and company. But yeah, these 2 guys are going to be meeting the playoffs for a while. It's going to be a situation where the winner of that game wins the Super Bowl. Now, it hasn't been the case the last 2 years, but make no mistake about it. As time goes on, a decade from now, we're going to be looking at some of these matchups, whether it be in Buffalo or in Kansas City, and be like, yep, okay, winner of that game ended up winning the Super Bowl. It's kind of like, in terms of team rivalries, it's kind of like how the Cowboys and the 49ers were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like the winner of that game won the Super Bowl. A lot of times in the NFC Championship game. And obviously, again, Brady versus Manning when Peyton was in Indianapolis and then in Denver. I think Brady finished with the better playoff record. Was it better playoff record? No, I think it was Brady finished with the better overall record over Peyton, but Peyton either had a better AFC Championship game record or playoff record. I can't remember what it was, but no, they certainly had their battles as well. To me, 2 of the 3 greatest quarterbacks ever. Obviously, Brady's the GOAT. We know that. But to me, Peyton's number 3. I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up live on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. Also, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Carving It Up YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it. It takes you 2 seconds. Just hit that subscribe button. Boom, done. That's how long it took you. All right, it's quick. And also subscribe to the Grid Network. I'm wearing the Grid hat today. Okay, subscribe to the Grid Network on YouTube and listen to my show, the podcast episodes on Apple, Spotify, etc. On the Grid Network podcast podcasting platforms. So go check out over there. Subscribe to to Apple and Spotify to listen to Carving Up Live, as well as my other teammates on the Grid, guys like Barry and Alfred and Patrick Brown and Ryan Flowers. So check those guys out as well. We got more coming from you from the Grid. Also, Carving Up merch. It's available now. Go to my Instagram. Got the link there. It's in. I've got my story saved. So click the link. Carving It Up merch, man. We got hats, T-shirts, hoodies. We've even got stuffed teddy bears. I mean, who doesn't love a stuffed teddy bear? And you got the Carving Up logo on it. Represent the show, support the show. We greatly appreciate everybody doing what they've been doing in that regard. So have a great week, everybody. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. And night-night. See y'all. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.